There's two things that I like more than anything else, and that's finding unique tools and great deals. And today we're going to take a look at both. And although I had to Amazon deep further than usual, I think I found a few items. So let's dive into these 7 unique Amazon items under $20 and see if they're worth a damn. So if you're new to this channel, you may be wondering what going Amazon deep means. Well, it is pretty simple. I go beyond the first, second, and third pages, going as deep as I need to find the tools that are unique. And I had 2 goals in mind for this video. Each item had to be under $20 and it had to be a tool that I hadn't seen before. So let's not waste any time at all and dive into our first tool. So our first tool of the day is the Milescraft Angle Finder. Let's take it out of the packaging and see what it's all about. Boy, I tell you, it can be hard to find a good angle on somebody. It's easy to find a bad one. For example, my ex, her angle was 360 degrees. So you'll know from watching this channel that Milescraft is a brand that I continue to be impressed with. But this was a Milescraft tool that I had to do a double take on, as I wasn't even quite sure what it did. But after looking at it a little bit closer, it became very apparent on what this tool does. Let's take a closer look. The first thing that you'll notice is this is kind of like a T-bevel. It goes from 180 degrees all the way to 0. And if we look at the base of the tool, you can see there's a small scale to tell you exactly what your angle is. And just like with the T-bevel, there's even a locking knob to hold your angle in place once you have your angle set. If we look at the legs of the tool, you'll see there's 2 red plastic plates on each leg. These are designed to create a lip on the edge of the tool so that you can rest it up right against the edge of your material, giving you an accurate reference point to set your angles. And lastly, you'll find a yellow tab right on the top. Let's talk about how this yellow tab works. If we open and close that angle finder, you're going to notice something unique about that yellow tab. That yellow tab bisects the angle right in the middle between the 2 legs of the tool. And this is where the real power of this tool comes into play. Let's do a quick example. So let's pretend that these 2 pieces of scrap wood are a corner of a wall, and these 2 pieces could be at any angle whatsoever. We'll take the angle finder, place it right into that corner, and lock it into place with the tab on the side. And now that we have our angle locked, we can now go over to the miter saw. And this is where the yellow tab is going to come into play. We'll first place one of the legs right up against the miter saw fence. Then we can adjust the angle of the miter saw until the blade kisses up right against that yellow tab. And with our miter saw locked into place, we can now make our first cut. And this is going to give us our left-hand side miter for that corner. Now we can repeat this process for the right-hand side. This time we'll now take our tool and place it right up against the fence on the right-hand side of our miter saw. Then in the same fashion, we'll adjust our miter saw until the blade is once again resting right up against that yellow tab. Then it's just a matter of cutting the right-hand side of this trim. And if we put the second piece into our corner, you can see it meets seamlessly with the first miter we cut. Now I know we did close to a 90-degree angle here, but you can really tackle any angle, and that's not the only thing you can do with this tool, as you could also use it on an outside angle, which is perfect for things like shoe molding. Which really makes this a pretty incredible tool with 0 math for trim work. And at a price of only $10.99, I think this could be a great addition for any shop. But we've got more tools to take a look at. Let's dive into our next one. Next up, we have the Pro Bond stainless steel tape measure. Let's give it a look. You know, I got a guy that uses one of those things to line up all my bib overalls. He's super fast too. I like to call him Taylor Swift. So this tape measure really caught my eye, as I thought it was one of the most flashy tape measures I've ever seen. But as we all know, looks aren't everything, so let's get it out of the box and take a look. So there's a couple of things that you'll notice right off the bat with this tape measure. The first thing is this thing is made mostly out of stainless steel, and the second thing is it's got a lot of holes in it. Now you can probably understand why this tape measure would be made out of stainless steel, as it will resist rust and have a longer lifetime. But why the heck does it have all these holes in it? Well, the intent of this is so that materials like mud, water, and sand can pass right through the tape measure. As you get debris in the tape measure, you can simply rinse it out to clean out all that debris, potentially protecting a lot of the mechanics inside the tape measure. Now this tape measure is an automatic one, which means when you pull the tape out, it will stay in place until you press the button on the front of the tape measure. You'll also notice as you pull it out, it's got a nice ratcheting sound, which will give you an indication of how far you've pulled it out. And if we look at the bottom of the tape measure, you'll notice it's got a nice strap with a carabiner attached. Let's take a quick look at the blade and the hook. This stainless steel hook is a dual-sided hook with a nail notch in the very end. And the blade is 25 feet long with 16th inch increments, and it even has fractions for every 1/8 of an inch. Now it's yet to be determined if that black writing on the stainless steel background is easy to read or if it's just going to be difficult in the sun. But it doesn't seem to be that difficult to read in the shop. Let's take a look at its last feature, which is probably one of my favorites. If we look at the bottom, you can see there's a little magnet sticker, and this means that it's magnetic on the very bottom, which could single-handedly make this a tape measure that gets used and not lost. Having a tape measure that's directly attached to something like your tape measure could make it one of the most used tape measures in your shop. And that feature alone makes this a great pickup for only $19.90. So I'm pretty pleased with the first two items we've taken a look at, but we've got more items to take a look at, and our next item is made by a brand that we've all heard of. This little guy is the Kreg Quick Flip. Let's give it a quick look. Quick Flip? That reminds me of when I was reading the Kama Sutra the other day. I think I found my favorite position. It's called the wow. Yeah, it's when I flip your mom over. So we all know Kreg's famous for pocket hole jigs, but this tool's got nothing to do with that. But since this bit is all about pre-drilling, countersinking, and driving in screws, it does have a lot of similarities. And in fact, it even uses those same square screws or Robertson screws that Kreg is famous for. So let's take a closer look at the features of this bit. First off, this is a dual-sided bit, with one side being a pre-drill and countersink bit. But you'll also notice there's a little brass tab. If we push up on this tab and remove the bit, you can see it reveals the Robertson bit. This means you can go from pre-drilling and countersinking a hole to driving in a screw very quickly. Let's quickly do a demonstration attaching a couple pieces of plywood. The first thing that we'll do is we'll insert the bit into our drill or even driver, as this bit is actually impact rated. Then we can drill out our pilot hole and countersink all in one swift motion. Once we have those holes drilled out, it's now time to flip the bit. So we'll push up on that bronze tab, remove the bit, flip it over, and lock it back into place. With the Robertson bit in place, we can grab a couple of screws and drive them both in. And just like that, we have a secure joint for your projects. But what if you want a deeper pilot hole? Well, you can actually increase the depth of your drill bit. Let's take a closer look at the opposite side of the bit. If we look on the very end of the bit, you can see there's a tiny little hex key on the very end. By removing this drill bit, you can use that hex key to loosen the nut to either extend or shorten your drill bit, giving you the exact depth you need for any material. So a pretty cool all-in-one bit from Kreg that's less than $13 for the entire bit that I think is going to get a lot of use in my shop. But we're not even halfway through, so let's move on to our next tool. Next up, we have the Toolsland 8-in-1 saw. Let's give it a look. 8-in-1? How about 8-in-4? What has 8 legs and 4 teeth? The night shift at Waffle House. So since this is an 8-in-1, it's kind of like a multi-tool, only it's a saw. A hand saw, actually, and the thing that impressed me the most about this saw was the type of blades it can handle. Let's take a look at what comes inside this box and the different types of blades this saw can accommodate. So inside the box, you're going to find the handle for this saw along with 8 blades. And if you took a quick look at those blades, you can see there's a lot of different styles here. First off, we have a standard 10-inch by 1/2-inch 24 tooth per inch hacksaw blade. After that, we have 3 blades that I would typically put in a reciprocating saw, including a wood blade, fast wood blade, as well as a flexible plastic metal blade. And lastly, we have 4 T-shank blades, which I would typically put in a jigsaw. And these blades include fast for wood, clean for wood, metal cutting, as well as a scroll for wood. So how does one handle accommodate all these different types of blades? Well, let's take a closer look. If we look at the very end of the handle, you'll see there's a little trigger for the blade release on this saw. You'll also notice that there's a few different insert slots right on the end of the saw. And it's these different insert slots that allow you to accommodate these 3 different styles of blades. Let's first take a look at the hacksaw blade. To insert the hacksaw blade, you're going to use the largest hole or the center hole. Simply depress the tab on the top and slide it right into that hole. Then you can release that tab and the blade is locked into place. And the nice thing about the hacksaw blade is you can actually adjust the length of the blade. By depressing that tab, you can make it longer or shorter depending on your need. Next up, we have the reciprocating saw blades, and this once again goes into that larger hole, which is the center hole. And although you can't adjust the length of this blade like you can the hacksaw blade, once it's in place, it's completely secure. And finally, we have the T-shaped blades or the jigsaw blades. Unlike the previous 2 blades, these will slide into the side into the smaller holes. And these are once again firmly held in place and have no movement once installed. And in my opinion, this is really pretty incredible, as I've never seen a saw that can accommodate all 3 different styles of blades. And at this price for under $20, I think is a great pickup for a handsaw. Well, I'm a happy camper so far with all 4 items we've taken a look at. But we've got 3 more unique items on Amazon for less than $20. Before we move on to our next, do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment, and share this video, as it really does help out this woodworking channel. Also, if you're like me and you like to have fun with woodworking, why don't you check out my website, flynndoggwoodwork.com. There you can find all sorts of fun woodworking accessories like all the t-shirts that I wear in my videos. Lastly, if you'd like to support the channel further, check out my channel memberships in the description below. There you get early access to all my videos as well as 1 member video a week. Now let's get back to those tools. Next up, we have the Measure Ease Pro Tape Hook Extension. Let's give it a look. Oh, hooks! That takes me way back to when I had a job baiting hooks down by the docks. I started off as an apprentice, but I ended up a master baiter. So out of all the items that we're taking a look at today, this is the one that I was most hesitant to buy, but I think it's worth taking a look. Now, we're all familiar with using a tape measure and having the hook slip on us when we're trying to take a longer measurement. Well, that's what this next item is supposed to solve. Let's get it out of the box and take a look. So this is a really simple tool. It's simply an extension for your tape measure hook. Instead of dealing with a tiny tape measure hook, this has got a 2-inch extension with a rubber pad to prevent slippage. And it's really quite easy to install on any tape measure. Simply pull your tape measure out and slide it into the slot on the Measure Ease. With your tape measure installed, you can see how the hook of your tape measure is aligned with the hook of the Measure Ease. And with the rubber grip and 2-inch extension on the end of your hook, this gives you a much secure hold for the end of your tape measure, preventing all that frustration you have with your longer measurements. And since it has a non-slip tip, it can even be great for round material like PVC or even pipe. And the price, well, it's a little salty for what it is, coming in at just under $15, but if you're measuring a lot of round material or you have some longer measurements, it may be well worth it. And after fiddling around with it for quite a bit here in the shop, it definitely works as advertised, so I'm pretty pleased with this one. Well, let's get into our next item, which is something that I'm pretty stoked about. Next up, we have the Namoka drill and screw gauge. Let's give it a quick look. Ha! Gauge? That reminds me of one. What has 40 balls and screws ducks? It's a 12-gauge shotgun. So we've looked at things like drill bit gauges and screw gauges in the past, but this thing's just a little bit different. And this is used for something that I've frankly been confused by in the past, so let's get it out of the box and take a look. So if you're like me, whenever you drill a pilot hole, you may not be sure which size screw to use. Or maybe you have certain size screws and you're not sure what drill bit to use. Well, this little gauge solves all that. Let's take a closer look. If we look closely at this gauge, you can see there's a bunch of different holes, not only for screw sizes, but also for drill bit sizes. And at the top, you can even see there's different measurements on whether or not you're using hardwood or softwood. So how does this thing work? Well, let's do an example using a screw size that I have in my shop, the number 8. So if we grab one of these screws, we can go to the screw size column on the very far left. And if we insert that screw into the number 8 slot, you can see that it's a perfect fit. We can then look down the row of the number 8 to see what size drill bits we should be using for this number 8 screw. And if we look at the gauge, you can see there's 2 different bit holes for each type of wood, both softwood and hardwood. So it gives you a readout for what size tapered bit as well as what size straight bit. So whether you're using hardwood or softwood, it gives you a readout for what size bit you should be using. So in this case, for softwood, we would use a 5/32 tapered bit or a 7/64 straight bit. If we were using hardwood, we would use 11/64 tapered bit or an 1/8 inch straight bit. And if you're unsure what size your drill bit is, you could even use this as a drill bit gauge. And in the same way where we used a screw to determine the bit, you could also use a bit to determine what size screw you use, taking all the guesswork out of creating pilot holes for your projects. And with the metric and imperial ruler on both sides of this gauge, you can even determine the length of your screws or bits. And the price on this gauge I think is pretty reasonable, going for less than $20 at $19.99. Making this, in my opinion, a great gauge to have in your shop, but we've got one more item to take a look at. Our last item of the day is the Woodwork multi-angle corner clamp. Woodwork? Seriously? I guess the translator was on vacation when they named that company. So most corner clamps we look at only deal with 90 degrees, but this one's a little bit different. The first thing that you'll notice about this clamp is that it can accommodate stock that's pretty thick. If we twist the knob on the back of the clamp, we can open this thing up. Now the fact that you can open up this clamp so wide is kind of a blessing and a curse, as it doesn't have a quick release and it takes considerable time to open, but it does open 3.5 inches wide. And since both sides operate independently, you can work with stock that's 2 different sizes. And this flexibility is great, but it really has nothing to do with why I got this clamp. Let's dig a little further. If we look at the back of the clamp, you'll notice a small brass screw. Let's unscrew that so that I can show you why I got this clamp. With that brass screw loosened, you can see it allows the clamp to adjust. And if we look at the back of the clamp, you can see it adjusts all the way from 90 degrees up to 30 degrees. And there's even a couple of indicator marks showing the complementary angles. By adjusting the clamp and locking down that brass knob, you can accommodate some of your more complex miters. And this clamp at under 14 bucks gives you a lot more flexibility than you see with a lot of other corner clamps. Well, that takes us through all 7 unique items that I found on Amazon for less than $20. I think there's some real winners in here, and I hope you enjoyed checking them out as much as I did. Well, I really appreciate you joining me today. Do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment, and share this video, as it truly does help. Also, if you haven't already, make sure you check out my website, FlynnDoggWoodwork.com. There you'll find all sorts of fun woodworking accessories like all the t-shirts that I wear in my videos. And if you'd like to support the channel further so that I can check out more of these amazing woodworking tools, check out my channel memberships. There you get early access to all my videos as well as 1 member video a week. Until next time, take care as always. All right, so I went to the store the other day to get 8 cans of Sprite. When I got home, I realized I only picked 7 up. Let's give this one a try. You know, the other day I was cornered by Dwayne Johnson in front of a Hallmark store. Yeah, I was caught between a rock and a card place. Come on. Jeez. All right, last try. So where do arsonists hook up with each other? Yeah, I heard they get a match on Tinder.